I think, okay, got it. Welcome back. This is part two. This is just a continuation of part one. There were a lot of things that were left off. One of the things that Liza had asked about was how do you preserve social media? So the only, and I'll send the email with the thing from the BMRC. But the only thing she said is there's information on how to archive and download files from Facebook and Twitter in the second intro to archiving workshop. And that's on the Google Drive. And basically, there's currently no way to download Instagram post already made directly to a device, but you can share the Instagram post to Facebook and archive your Facebook page per the instructions in the workshop. So that's how she only addresses those two social media. Also, for future Instagram posts, you can change the option and settings to save each photo taken through the app, though it won't download the caption or interaction data that would be archived by Facebook and Twitter. And so I'll send you that email, Liza, because I think that was one of your questions. And you may be using other social media, but that's just for that now. Okay. And I'll send the other one in terms of, okay. So we're just going to proceed. And so where we had started was.
Before you get started, I think that Talver and Shona were going to go into the break room.
Yeah.
Okay.
This would be an opportune time if you guys wanted to.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
You wanna let's see.
Wait a minute. Shall I stop sharing and let you go in the breakout break? There's a breakout rooms appear now, so you can go there. Then I'll go back to share screen at the bottom.
Yep, it shouldn't interfere at all. They should be able to come and go.
Okay.
Which break room, Talbert? I see artist design.
She's in pop-up culture.
Okay, thank you. Bye, ladies.
Bye-bye. Thank you for sharing and congratulations on your, I look forward to seeing pictures of those chairs. I like big chairs. They're fun.
Thank you so very much. All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. So that was your answer, Liza, and I'll just send you the actual email that she wrote with the link to the information on there. And so just want to pick up where we left off, but want to go over some things real quick. Okay, here we go. Okay, that's not letting me move it forward, so wait a minute. It was working before. Here we go. Slideshow. There we go. And so one of the things that we had talked about was basically we spent some time talking about the scope of the collections, and we went over this, and the only thing that changed was we had asked was basically are all your audiences described in the vision statement, and it was yes if we eliminate emerging and just say artists. I think that was the net, but I think for now this was a good working thing, and I know that basically Alpha wants to keep emerging, but I think for everybody else they're serving all artists. And I know the problem with just saying emerging is emerging means different things to different people in terms of what they are at the career path. So it might be just cleaner if you say artists, but I know you were with that. And so then, and we talked about the scope of your collection, community collection goals, your audience and their needs. And so going to the next, we looked at who are your audiences, and the only thing that we did, and I'm skipping through just a lot of the stuff, is we said we added artists to who are your artists because that was missing. And so you'll see that in red after that brief discussion. And so one of the things in terms of collection appraisal process, and I just want you to say, if I'm off, jump in. And if there's more nuances that I've missed, this is a good time because you may have thought about it to add some other things. then one of the things is, does this collection have information about a time period, place, or group of people that are undocumented? And this was for all three of you here, for all of your archives. And what you basically came up with, many of the artists represent underdocumented groups. Is there anything else that you want to add to that question? Because you thought that in some cases they were documented, in some cases they weren't. And then we asked, can this information be found elsewhere? So do you want to talk a little bit more about what is unique about your different archives, if other things have come up?
Is that a question for Liza, or that's just a question?
That's a question for the three of you all.
So I'm looking at the first question in terms of does the collection have information about a time period, place, or group of people that are underdocumented? Maybe you mean underdocumented.
There's not a lot of documentation on them.
Okay.
Underrepresented would be under how they refer to underdocumented. Not generally, say for instance, if someone went to the Art Institute, would they document it? Because that's one of the archives that you said, that document artists that came up the last time. Just, do you feel the groups that you represent are underdocumented, emerging artists in some cases?
Well, technically,
Or,
I mean, they are the ones the gatekeepers are keeping out, and that's sometimes how they transition from that problem. So I don't know if that counts.
Say what you just said, Liza, because you'd say.
Well, I'm saying that a lot of the people that we work with are typically people that the gatekeepers are usually not allowing into the usual spaces.
Okay.
And so we have documentation of a lot of things that otherwise would have not been documented for that reason. With us, it was a mix between Bill Viola and a graduating class at USC. Oops, sorry about that. It was always a wide mix, but we had a lot of artists who were definitely not emerging, but who had not been able to make the impact that they thought they could. And then they funded projects in our spaces, and those projects would have gone unrealized or undocumented. So there runs a spectrum of where, because this type of programming was so embraced and was so open, it created a lot of opportunities for people who otherwise could not find them elsewhere. But it also created opportunities for artists who, like for instance, with Nancy Buchanan, she certainly is not an artist who is lacking opportunity. Gatekeepers love her. She was the star of the Getty video show among many stars, but she did a project with us that, she couldn't find a venue for, and it really came from her heart. And she felt that it really was access to a general public audience that she didn't find in a lot of the other venues. And so we have that documented. So from that perspective, I think we are definitely documenting things that otherwise would not. Interesting choices that artists make in their career path that otherwise wouldn't be realized without this venue or opportunity, as well as a lot of well-known curators for a show. Would they have not gotten the second show if they had not at least been able to show what they could do there? And so we're documenting, a lot of opportunities that would have not occurred. for a large spectrum of.
It's interesting that you're talking about documentation, and one of the things I think that, because we're talking about the artwork fund and looking at how they ask, how we're going to engage, minorities or African Americans or Black Indigenous people, how are we going to engage them in the conversation and in the project and in the outreach. And interesting enough, when I was listening at the roundtable, Max Samsing was saying the same kind of thing about missed opportunities to archive and photograph and document the murals, the breadth of murals that he works on, because sometimes the murals are painted over. And in the failure to document that process, he wished that he could go back and document that process of lost murals, because they're not up there, like, especially if you're urban, they're not there forever. Just like the pop-up or phantom scene, a lot of times, I know Liza takes great photographs. I take lousy photographs in terms of documenting my audience, making sure that I'm bringing someone on and having someone, making sure they're photographing, their video, videotaping segments of the what we're producing. Even here in Bronzeville, that's something that we had a paid videographer to do, and they didn't understand what's important for us and what we're looking for in their documentation. And that means scanning the audience, because you're telling the funder, this is the audience participant. You don't just show a blank stage and no people around it, right? To kind of qualify, that you've done this work. So when you're talking about the appraisal process, it's all about, I guess, the documentation that you got from it and the photographs that you're putting on it, and making sure you're in front of that, when you're doing your project, because a lot of times it'll show that you don't have, when you span the audience that comes to some of these things, do you see African American people in the audience? Do you see? And I'm like, I'm just trying to get the work up and curate the show, and hopefully getting the audience out and who's paying attention, to try to answer that question, represent underdocumented groups. It's like, if you got to make that effort in the front of it to make sure that you're planning to do that. We have over here in the Bronzeville Art District, we had something like 4,000 people all into the streets and stuff, but the failure to get the photographer to photograph the right documentation. So we got to guide that, I guess, as we're collecting data.
So you've made that response a lot more richer in terms of exactly, because you've also talked about in terms of just not only the artists represent underdocumented groups, the audiences recommend under, as well as the curators get their first jump. So you've broadened it a lot. So thank you. Anything else you can think of? So I think it's just the three of us now.
I think Laura did a call in.
Okay, gotcha.
I sent Laura a phone number though, so she could call in if she wants.
Okay. She was working between two meetings.
Gotcha.
And I just got amazing news, by the way.
What's that?
Can I share? I'm so sorry. This is interrupting, isn't it?
Go on.
Okay, so my contact, who he built out sound studios and built out in Hawthorne, where we had galleries, very roughly and loosely, and then he was so lovely. He has enough money of his own, so now he's trying to train me and Dave to do what he did. And I just looked, and they're charging a fortune he left the Hawthorne Arts Complex. And I looked, and they were charging a fortune, and they're kind of 20 minutes north of us. They're in a better area in regards to LA-based artists, because we're further south. So the further south you go, the less they want to drive that far, especially now. But he was saying that they're closing down. He just texted me that they're closing down, and all of those artists need space. So we might have like an instant 50 to 100 people who need space, which would make it a lot easier to transition. So anyway,
Long Beach is
I
what?
mean, I feel terrible that it's closing. I'm a little in shock. I was just looking at how amazing it's, like a success story in so many ways. Oops.
Mhm.
And so anyway, let's refocus. I just had to
Okay,
react.
so we had talked about, are the records rare or unique? Can they be found elsewhere? And so some of the sources that were cited were journalists, the internet, art schools, and then I think Alpha, you mentioned Loop Alliance, New Communities, and Scoreboard. And did I mess them up? What about you? Is it Scoreboard? Did I?
Where are we? Okay, the Loop Alliance, New Communities.
Yeah,
and
those
the
were some
Scoreboard.
places. You had suggested that might be sources. Liza, what are some sources for you?
Okay, ask me that question one more time. I'm right here.
Can you find, are the records unique? Can you find them other places? And so some of the sources that we talked about, I'm just trying to expand it out, then keep it moving. Were journalists, in terms of what you've been documenting, are there other sources? What would be, where would
Other sources that documented us?
No, that document the things you document. Where might someone look?
Well, again, you mean someone who is officially documenting it, like Artsland? Is that what you're referring to? Or
no, if somebody wanted to do what you did in terms of a pop-up research, or do a negotiate space, temporary space for housing, where else might they go? Because those are the different things that you all do.
What is the name of that it's a placemaking organization that I attended a group talk once. Look at that. I should have a record of attending that.
Okay, well, you can just email it to me.
Okay, I can make a list and email it to you.
Yeah, just do that. I mean, but it's just getting you in that thought, because I think when you're looking for it, you can go to these and say how your
CPC.
What is it?
CPC, Creative Placemaking Communities.
Okay. No, and the only reason I'm doing this now, because it gives you a competitive framework, and it gives you to say, well, such and such does this. So if you're ever approaching someone, you can say, eventually do a SWOT sheet in terms of just looking at strengths and weakness, what they're doing, and just say, this is what we're doing that they're not covering, and this is why you might want to consider adding us to the canon. And so this is just to get into that. You see where I'm kind of going?
Yep.
Okay.
Another place was the Arts Alliance of Communities is another place I should have added on here, because what we've just done is added, like Liza added this huge networking group. I mean, we could be all over the place, but to focus on a group that's already doing research, and that's the group that you were saying with the network convening projects, Common Field. And then I registered us for the Arts Alliance of Communities.
Is it Arts Alliance or Arts Alliance of Communities?
Oh, Alpha, come on, kick in, get your.
That's all right. You can email, but it's just
get
to
my
get your
brain
brain
working here. What's happening is I am trying to really shift the gear, because when you called me earlier, I had just finished submitting a grant to the California Arts Council, and something that was churning around in my head that I had a drop dead date before our meeting. And so I'm still shifting the gear from how I was doing the development for that grant that's connected with arts in prisons and making transitional stuff. So anyway, I'm shifting, because even with the California Arts Council, and that's the portal I was working in, they have a newsletter, and that newsletter is for outreach, right? So I can, when you talk about places to collect information, but also to give information, would be on platforms like that. like I can put those announcements on the newsletter for the state, since that's one of our case studies are in California, and you have the case study that's in Sacramento, the case study with Liza that's in LA. The bigger piece of that is getting the audiences throughout the state for what we're doing. And I'm trying to not think locally as much, but I have to think like, you know, that statewide, because two of our case studies are there, and then here in Chicago, you know, and then nationally here in Chicago, I just talked about the internet and the things that I listed here.
Mm-hmm.
But nationally, made sure that we were connected to the it's the Alliance of Artist Communities is the name
Okay.
of it.
Thank you.
Okay, they just changed it. That's why I got to get it together here. They just changed their name, and I'll put that link in the chat. But to plug in memberships to larger pieces so that we can go on and put things and update ourselves in their the newsletters and in different reports, I think.
What was the name of the place in California? And Laura, what we're doing is what I put in red was what you all told me, and we're just expanding on that to sort of keep it moving. Because you had given sources in terms of journalism, internet, and then I think Kayla did the art school, like in terms of the Art Institute of Chicago, documents all their artists. And so just looking at when you're going, thinking of where you might go to archive your stuff, you can just see where these people might archive, but also you can differentiate yourself from what you're doing versus them if that's in the journal. And so did anything else come out in terms of sources that you go to where you archive? That, where you would go to find the information that you have with your two?
Is your mic on?
When I think of audience, I think of who wants to find us or who doesn't know that they want to find us yet.
Okay.
But so the spin on the question is a little bit different. It's where do we put our information now, or I guess maybe I'm not understanding.
Oh, no. What I was saying is one of the things that it asked about, and I think it's just getting you ready to, if you ever want to present your information to an archive, one of the things that people might ask you is when you appraise your collection is, does this information have information? We just talked about, does it have information about a time period, place, or group of people that are undocumented? And Liza gave a wonderful, answer in terms of how it may get new artists their first look at it, but also it gives established artists the opportunity to try something new. And in some cases of some of the stuff she's done, it's been someone had their first opportunity to curate a show.
Right.
So it's been a jumping off ground in terms of what her collection has documented.
Right.
And so that flowed into, we had asked this question last time, are these records rare and unique that you all host? And where else can that information be found? And so that's just to get a sense in terms of if you ever wanted to do a SWOT analysis when you were trying to get someone, to either get funding for it to show the need that it doesn't exist, or to show how it differs, as well as just a source to see what they might be doing.
Right.
So that's where we are right now.
Okay.
Your question is a good one that we could go on. So if you think of anything else, because you had given journalists and internet, those were your responses the last time.
Right. And I was also thinking of universities and non-for-profit galleries in rural areas, as well as other cities who are interested in curating shows without doing an open call. so they're interested in curators and they're interested in artists that have a point of view or an expression. And so they're, it's, and it may be international. And I'm just thinking of it in the sense of a producer or a programmer or, artists in other locales that are looking for inspiration, or they're looking to produce something locally and they want to kind of, an example might be the Smithsonian has a collection of materials that it lends out to a rural community that then they invite the community to add their personal history to that collection. And so by having an archive and an active group of curators, and producers, I don't know if those terms are interchangeable, but I'm just thinking that we had created exhibits that traveled, and once we put the effort together to catalog it and document it and have it shared amongst our partners, it was a product that then we could share with a larger community over a period of time. And so, all of that kind of happens, I don't know, word of mouth. We kind of extend those partnerships into new communities. And so it is very much representing artists that don't have gallery representation, who are active in their communities, but looking for additional career development by engaging with new partners.
Okay. Thank you. And then, so in terms of, that's more in terms of what that collection does. And you talked about schools. Do the materials belong with you or somewhere else? Ideally, where would you want the files to be retained?
Well, I had, what did we say?
Or your wish list?
We didn't say anything. I think that a couple of the places that I know we want, or that's already Liza's collection and mine, are part of Art Slant, and the New York Art Resources Consortium has a lot of the all of the records from Art Slant, and Art Slant was collecting. If you join them and you promoted your exhibits and your shows and your outreach and the things that you were doing with your galleries, and were a member, at the end of their 12 years, they took this whole collection, and it is part of the Library of Congress now.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they got a big grant to do this, but our legacy is part of those collections. And again, it's two digital archives, one, the Library of Congress, and the New York Art Resources Consortium, where we could go on that and anyone could go in through that library and look at those collections. And the way they have it set up, and it's available to researchers, at the library facilities and by special arrangements. But you can also go online and look at the collection, um, you know, and I guess it has public access websites. Um, and then,
So it has a good index. It's easy to find. You can search on names or topics or exhibit titles or places.
Yes.
Cool.
Right. And then, and a little bit about the New York Art Resources Consortium, which includes ArtSlant and all the web archive collection that they have of our stuff. And we were just one gallery or one, artist that, was part of their web. Um, they also are connected with it says here, it says comprises the research libraries of the Brooklyn Museum, the Frick
Mm-hmm.
Collection, and the Museum of Modern Art. So these libraries are committed to enabling access to the broadest possible range of print materials related to art and art history, and how they are also making archival copies of important web resources for preservation and process purposes. So part of our collection for 10 years in our pop-ups and show and exhibits are part of this.
You
Did
said,
that answer your
yeah.
question? It's just one place.
So what percentage of your collection is there?
Well,
And
all the 10 years, basically, what would
okay,
that be? If we're looking at, for me, case studies started in 1996. It was as far back as we can go as 1996 with library web archiving
mm-hmm.
and the, what is it called? The Wayback Machine, which is the Internet Archive. And it just takes you back to like 1996. So for me, if this with ArtSlant was 10 years, that would might be half of our collection, or maybe a
Okay.
third, I would say.
So 1996 to 2006?
Yes.
Okay. Liza, is your collection there too?
As far as I know, just because it was present, I did not get an email like that where I cared about it at the time. And so I don't have a link to where my information was on ArtSlant. But I knew the woman who started it. I was one of the first people on it. So I know that the archived said that it started in 2012 when we weren't programming or adding much. I think we added a few things, but that would mean, I'm assuming, everything before. So I don't definitively know, and I couldn't tell, but I'm assuming yes.
And that's something that she has yet to research, because I was the one keeping up with and got the email from ArtSlant that told me
Mm-hmm.
I needed to back up all of the files, and gave all of the artists and art organizers and curators ample time to go in, back up your files, put them on an external drive, because they were closing down that website, and they told us what they were doing with it, and then it was up to us to make sure that we got it and did that. And so by me paying attention to the email that came through, I also blogged about it at the time, that the Phantom Gallery, Chicago, and the network was part of this larger piece.
So then the question that comes up with yours, and then we'll go to Laura, is, so you need basically from 2006 on is what's not archived that you're looking at?
Well, Laura's a different scenario because she has a lot of hard.
Oh, no,
Well, I
I'm
can
just talking
speak
about
for
for you,
myself.
Alpha. I'm just doing one at a
Oh,
time, then we'll go to Laura. I'm saying for you,
okay.
so does that mean from 2006 on is what needs to be archived? Or
Well, I
ideally as a
think that
whole?
if you talk about what I need to archive and what 2009 is when I started blogging and archiving stuff here in
Uh-huh.
Chicago. And so I'm talking about pre 1999 2000s. That's archived somewhere.
Okay.
But for me, for looking at, you asked us where a place where something is stored, in that collection
Mm-hmm.
of work is stored, and it would be from 2000, I think it was 5, and I'll give you the exact date in a moment, until 2012, when they stopped, when they took off this 10 years to, um, you know, uh, let people launch and do things on their website, and before they harvested everything and then placed it at the Library of Congress.
Okay.
Good question, because that makes me have to say, what are you talking about? Putting a timeline together and tighten that timeline up better. So I should have the answer to that if someone asks me.
Well, yeah, but then what I'm going to say is, how do you, is it a way to make it all, your whole collection go to one place? Are you?
Yeah. We can add to this art slant. You know, once we get in, you get your link. It's set up so that it can be like, we're there. So now I can go in and I can add, because I'll have my own domain part of it, and then I can add the rest of our collection in there.
So you have a place for it to go.
Yes. Yeah. That's why I'm saying, you know,
Got it.
with Art Slant, actually in 2007 is the actual time it started, and it was launched, and it became a 12-year commitment. So 2007 plus 12 is what.
That's all right. Okay, 2007, we get rid of 2007 plus 12 years is Art Slant. Okay, no, because one of the things was, how do you archive? So that tells me, and I'm just trying to get it, pull it. But so you've got stuff archived. And did Liza's stuff go at that time too, through 2012?
I'm assuming
Plus
that it
12.
did, because anyone that posted on that website would be part of that collection. And so what the homework or what the assignment would be is to actually go and pull up your link. Go into the database and research the database.
I couldn't find it.
You couldn't find it? Oh.
That's why I asked, what is your link? Like, if you can send me your link, maybe I can figure it out. But I didn't have anything in my email records, and I keep a lot on that email. For when they asked for that, I have a faint memory of it occurring, because I know Georgia died. The woman who I met, she passed away, and I remember when that happened, we were like, what is going on? But no, that's it. I don't know how to get it. Maybe I can glean some information from what your link is.
Okay,
so so Laura, ideally, where are your files right now? Are any of them archived in some places?
No, I have, we were most active from 1986 until 1996. And kind of pre-internet. So it's sitting in a box. But
in boxes, okay.
But the Chicago Public Library had a service, and every time we had exhibits, we sent them announcements and newsletters and the like. And then they quit. So they were actively archiving the active Chicago art scene. And then they got tired of doing that and it was suspended. And Alpha, what was the
Chicago Artist Resource?
Right. And no, the woman that lives in your building, she got a grant to archive.
Oh, yeah, Tempest.
Tempest.
Hazel,
right.
She got 60 inches from the center.
Right. And so they asked individual artists as well as arts organizations to put hard copies of their information together. And then they were creating an archive. And so I don't know. So I put a representative folder together of, like 50 examples. And so what I never followed up with was where that, so they were creating a digital archive over a period of time. So that tells me I should find out where that ended up. And part of the problem of placing it someplace is that they get bored or they quit, and what happens to your stuff? Did the Chicago Public Library take those archives and put them someplace? Probably not, because they were hard copy. They just created file cabinets full of stuff. I don't think it went anywhere.
Yeah, I know that 60 inches from the center got like $350,000 from the Mellon Foundation to and the NEA to archive their work there at the Washington,
At the library?
library downtown.
All right. So
So
that
things are
tells me I need,
online. For
right.
them, things are online. They go out and they actually, I have a video with them.
Mhm.
Susan Fox, different people have. They were in the earlier years. They were going around and doing these videotapes and of artists
Mhm.
talking about their projects.
Right. And I have probably half a dozen videotapes of different things that happened between 1996 and 2003. So that's for 8 years. And I would like them to be someplace besides Vimeo, it's, so yeah, I need to, I've got boxes of stuff and videotapes and links to things. And so it would really help me if I had a workbook or something to collect that information from 1986 to 2006.
When you say a workbook, what are you talking about, Laura? Talk a little
Oh,
bit.
a guide,
Okay.
what do I do with this stuff and what's important to keep and how do I name it, or how do I collect that information so it's valuable? How do I index it?
Okay.
And once I put, I can archive our stuff and choose what's valuable and important and put a package together, but where does it go?
Oh,
Right.
Here's
We
a
were collecting a lot of information about Nelson Algren and people who knew him, and video and writing and events and poetry and stories. And we had, so we had probably 3 or 5 boxes of information, and Ohio University was very interested in archiving it. And so we just sent it to them. We didn't do anything other than give them an inventory and let them pick out what was important. And so for them, it was a multi-year, they could make student assignments to do this. And so they could create an archive attached to Nelson Algren, the author, and make it available.
so slowly, are there any other places where your information is?
No.
Okay. I think
so how can we get to that, Laura?
Get to that workbook kind of how to.
well, on the BMC, there are all kinds of how-to guides, and I think I posted it on the thing, and there are links to all, and I've been to a couple of their workshops, so I know what I need to do for my personal thing. I just need to do it.
Right. Yeah,
And so some of the stuff that we're going to go through just talks a little bit about how you might, are there some common things that are among with all 5 of your organizations? Because Laura, you have 2 organizations, but are there some common things that are in 5 that you might have some consistent labeling going forward? Because is one of the goals that you all wanted it somewhat, and maybe I'm wrong, to unite it some type of way in terms of, or just individually you're doing your thing? Just curious.
Before you ask that question, you know, I mean, I don't know if you've seen this since you had brought up 60 inches, from the center.
Right.
they're offering these archiving, workshops,
Mm-hmm.
and they have an archiving one-on-one with the Blackavist. Is that the same organization you're gleaning information from to use
Yeah.
to present? Oh yeah. So they're offering on March 20th from 2 to 3 p.m. a archiving one-on-one with Skylar Hearn, and it says the workshop is for anyone interested in creating archive and will cover the physical and intellectual labor of documenting, collecting, and preserving analog and digital materials.
Hmm.
So I'm going to sign up for that. And then they also have an archiving through social media. So I'll forward you this site because it can give some ideas of
Can you put it in the
continued
chat?
information.
Yeah. Can you put it in the chat?
Yeah. I'm getting ready to,
That'd be
because I'm
great.
going between
Now,
my
Alpha,
phone
I have a
and-
basic question. You all put a lot of stuff in the chat. How do I save all those things that are in the chat that you put? Because I can never
Liza, your
get back.
tech support.
Huh?
Liza's tech support.
Okay.
Well, in
Yeah.
the chat, there's 3 little dots at the bottom,
Uh-huh.
and that you can save it as a text document.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute, save chat.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah. But you know what I do? I just, before the end of if it closes out before you can save it, you kind of lose it.
Mhm.
And so I go in and copy everything and save it in
Word, yeah.
yeah, and so
Yeah.
mine all sit in the same place and I can go back through the history of it. Otherwise, it saves it as a text document with a date on it, and I forget,
But
what-
see, if I'm on my computer as opposed to my phone, it's not going to save it as a text document, would it?
right.
You wouldn't know.
That was one question that I had too. How do we go back? Because we've been sharing a lot of good things in the past sessions, or maybe if we miss a session and want to get the resources. So you're saying that once the meeting is over, all of it is gone?
Except for the host. The host should be whoever. But maybe what we'll do is have a 2-minute right before closeout and go save the chat.
No, there's
Yeah.
3 little dots that are right there in the chat. You click that and then you save it. It says save chat.
But you have to have the video recording to have access to it after that, don't you, Laura?
Okay.
No, it's a separate file.
Oh, okay.
The video of our sessions is recorded and then uploaded to YouTube privately, and then is shared with the people who have joined, since this is more of a private, not a public meeting. And then the chats are saved from every meeting and they are uploaded to a folder in PopUp Research Station Gmail. And additionally, almost all of the chat shared links are then duplicated and put on the cafe menu. And so those are the 3 places that they are for sure. There's another document that is strictly resources that we have shared that collects the resources in a more searchable manner. And so there's lots of ways to get any of the information that we are sharing on the PopUp Research Station Cafe.
So maybe the next time you can do a demo on how we might do that, Liza. For some of us, still are not getting it, okay? But I will try.
Thank you.
I'll just save it and put it in a Word document for 2 hours before.
Thank
Let's
you,
just-
Liza. Thank you, Lisa, for saying that. I didn't want to say that.
What I don't know, I'll
Liza,
say.
you
'cause that's
said
you.
you said so matter of factly, Liza, and you say, oh, well, you can go here. But maybe like at the next meeting, you could just give us a little tutorial.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, so this was helpful because I found out about a lot more about where your stuff is archived, and you all are well on your way in terms of doing some things, but just want to go next Is there anything else? Does anybody have anything else to say about this one? Anything to add? And I think ideally what you want your files to be retained is you desire for it to be accessible, easily accessible, and serve as a historical resource or a living resource. Historical, we don't want to be that. We want to be a living resource, in some cases historical. Would that be okay?
I think that would be, yeah.
Okay. Why isn't this thing moving?
So I think that because we're always saying that we want to do a toolkit, it is important that it's a living resource and not something that's stagnant and filed away.
Right.
You know, and no one can get to it. Just like it should be very easy, it should be more simpler for Liza to go MySpace. Who in the world can you get to your MySpace account?
I don't think
I'm
so.
looking at
Yeah,
the chat
that's
and
actually up, isn't it?
I can't even get into my MySpace world anymore. Like, if you didn't download and back up stuff on MySpace, can you get to it?
Isn't it living on the Wayback Machine?
It's all gone. I got half my photos that I did on my iPhone. I don't know where they are.
That is too funny. But seriously, you know, on the serious side, before we move on, even with Chicago Artist Resource, you know, and that was Chicago Artist Month was a 20-year in the making. And I was even a visual art researcher for the Department of Cultural Affairs. And it's like, where is that landed? Did it continue? Even when it was sent over to Chicago Artists Coalition, how are they archiving all of that's a huge archival base of what artists were doing in Chicago, not only in the visual scene when it started, but in the media, in theater, in dance, and in music as they expanded the platform. You know, so that's so I know that the Phantom had stuff on that platform here in Chicago.
Right.
So that was Chicago
Artist Resource.
Okay.
Alpha, did you mean to post that to the group? You sent me a private. It's the I guess but it's the
Oh no, I meant to send that to everybody. I just
Yep,
for some
I'm
reason I just had
reposting.
you.
There we go.
Oh, did you
Alpha
redo
posted
it?
that.
Okay,
I
great.
did.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
Because that's what I'm over here doing, looking up and sending you all stuff because I'm using my phone instead of having my all that stuff going on my computer. Trying to get around it shutting off. And you wanted to get more information about the archiving 101, and that would be at 60 inches from the center. That was in their latest email or newsletter that came out.
Was the resource BMRC as to who was sponsoring it? You've got the video that for 101.
This is a whole nother one.
Yeah, you've got 2 videos though, and then they've got other stuff on YouTube, and all that's on the your Google Drive, and then there's a whole bunch of links, one sheet with just about 25 links to different topics that they shared.
I'm just sharing with what I'm getting off of the 60 inches from the center and how they are really, you know, looking at the part of their grant that they got for archiving. As an example, they even have archiving through social media. And who else? And then some of the latest conversations they've had with artists. So I'm going to put their link in the.
Perfect. Thank you.
But I guess they really partnered with the Blackavist.
Well, that BMRC, you've got Northwestern supporting it, you've got University of Chicago supporting it, the archivists. So you've got a wealth of archivists. I mean, in terms of what their experience are, you know, that run that, in terms of who the member organizations are that support it.
It's amazing because Tempest uses 436 East 47th Street. They're 60 inches from the center. It's located right here in our building. Their office is located.
Did you know that?
So
Yeah,
it's
I know that.
Phantom
I
Gallery.
know the curator. She's upstairs. She's on the third floor.
Oh, okay.
So it's Phantom Gallery. Isn't that your address, Alpha?
That's our Bronzeville Artist Loft address.
Yeah.
Phantom
But
Gallery
is
is
that
in.
your address for Phantom Gallery?
I use 440. It's on
Okay.
the second floor. Yeah, that's the address for the Phantom Gallery.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can we move on? Thanks. This is
Yes,
what
yeah, please do.
okay, this is what I heard, and this is the status of the different organizations, but all this is wrong. This is wrong because based on our prior conversation, you've got a lot of stuff at different places. And then I know the only thing that we probably haven't talked about for you, Laura, is one of the things you kept talking about earlier on is that you wanted to create case studies or white paper.
Mm-hmm.
That's Laura's special. That's what Laura
Yeah,
does.
but that was one of the things, that's what I said. That was one of the things that Laura wanted to do as a way to pull it together so that it's useful
Right.
as opposed to just having things in files.
Mm-hmm.
And so those were some of the things. I mean, but I think in terms of status of archives, it's a lot further along than what was said earlier, based on our prior conversation. And is there anything that you all want to add to this? Because I'll update it based on what you've said and put those things in there. But you're sort of far
see.
more long than what you said. Liza?
Oh, I see Space the Gap is making a tiny appearance. It is an evolution of services of Phantom Galleries LA, meant for an expansion of small creative businesses. But I don't know that it's archiving anything. Anything that Space in the Gap does is archived through Phantom Galleries, because Phantom Galleries is me, but it is organizing the SG Gallery program.
Okay, but you know what? I had Space in the Gap with Laura, so that was my
I
mistake.
see that.
And I kept saying, well, she's never talked about Space in the Gap. And I had it separately, so it was my messed up note. So I'll just correct that because that's. And are you archiving anything with Space in the Gap?
I mean, in the same ways that Phantom Galleries is, but I don't know
Gotcha.
that would be the objective. I think Phantom Galleries will continue to archive the work it does with Space in the Gap.
Gotcha. Okay. So we can move on to this one because it's been talked about. And then the game plan for identifying archives, and you've added a whole bunch more to it. You've talked about the School of the Art Institute. You've talked about NHPRC, which promotes the preservation and use of America's documentary heritage, essential to understanding our democracy, history, and culture. And then there's the Archives of American Art that the Smithsonian has, because I went and looked at their website. And I know that they were at the DuSable and up here and everything else collected at one point. I don't think it was the American, I think it was the African American Museum, because they digitized a whole bunch of stuff for me and they just had a public call for information for. And so I don't know if anybody has looked into that in terms of looking at as a space, Alpha or Laura or Liza.
I'm sorry. Question again. I was sitting here. I had to come back, get something to drink, and I came back. So I heard half of the question.
Okay, Archives of American Art, because you had mentioned NHPRC before in terms of game plan for identifying archives, because I think the biggest thing is what has the most permanence, because in terms of the Chicago Public Library, it's at the whims of what's going on. And I think Artsland, which is now the other, if it's at the Library of Congress, that'll remain as long as the U.S. is here. And so are there, in terms of some of your documentation, and then there's the Archives of American Art with the Smithsonian. Have you ever looked into that for anything? Because it looked like it might.
think in the beginning, I looked at last year, basically, I looked at the NHPRC because of the funding source and, talk to them about more of a planning, grant and how to preserve the work that we're doing in the field. And I have to circle back. We haven't heard from them. I know that the proposal that we submitted through Sojourner Truth was not. Oh, it wasn't ready to go. It wasn't ready to go out. And we submitted one through Near Northwest Arts Council, Laura and I. And so we haven't heard back from that one at all. I haven't received an email saying yes, no, maybe so, nothing. But I think what I'm going to do is to continue to work with, of course, the Library of Congress and making our stuff rest there instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and come up with a whole nother. If something's already there, I need to add to that and make it a central point of, and then like how they say, you have a central website and then you aggregate everything else out, to the social medias and really show that as a landing spot where, and direct people there to just that one location. I don't really want to go all over the place.
Gotcha.
And then come back out, just like what Artworks Fund says, where is this collection being archived? You know what I mean? I can say, because I went back and checked my records, it's already at the Library of Congress, this section of it. But then pleading our case, well, if you already got it archived, then why do you need our help? I think, is it the process of shaping our plan?
Do you know how they cataloged it?
Huh?
Do you know how they cataloged your collection?
No, that's the part I need to go back and see. All they did was took all the information that was on their website for all those years and placed it so that when you go through, I mean, just because you asked me, when I researched this, I went to that site. And then the next step is to go back deeper in, take a deeper dive. But they showed me how, when you log on, you have your own standalone page. But what we're looking at is how shaping the conversation with NHPRC is that we're coming together as a collective or collaboration. And that's what the proposal was under NHPRC, was a collaborative approach.
But when you do that, then in terms of, since I'm sure the Library of Congress has already cataloged your stuff some kind of way, in terms of consistently looking at how, if that works for all, and starting there, and then what modifications need to be made to take into account. Because you already told me what your ideal archive is, and then I'm gonna just go real quick because you said you're already there, so just build on that and find a way to incorporate everybody else. And the Library of Congress is gonna stay there as much as anybody else. It's as permanent as any place else is. Who knows what's permanent anymore? So others, what are your ideas? What do you think about Alpha's plan in terms of just integrating everything with the Library of Congress? Because she's got that stronghold. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's great.
Okay.
As long as we know, I don't know, how to find it, how to source it, how to add to it.
Plus, also in terms of how you are going to you all need to talk about how you might want to catalog it based a little bit on how her stuff is already cataloged and how you build out looking at some places that are similar. And then for you, Laura, one question is, can you connect the University of Ohio archives to whatever you archive, because that still is part of the work that you collected and should be sourced.
Right.
Yeah, Liza, where are you at on this? You're being kind of quiet. in terms of-
Well, I'm listening and I'm taking notes. I
Uh-huh.
don't have more to add.
Okay.
Uh,
Are you okay with sort of where this discussion is going?
I think so. I mean, I have, yeah, I'm okay.
I
Okay.
think that of all of us, in terms of mapping, Liza has the most cohesive mapping showing where she's been, um, of all of us.
You keep talking about Liza's map.
You
It's
saw the
not
map?
that, it's not you. I'll show it to you right now. I'll try to pull it up and you will be disappointed.
No, we won't. I'm gonna stop sharing and you pull it up. I want to see this map because you are, and I love maps.
Trying to fix it and couldn't. Let's see. Oh, there we go. I couldn't get the two to work. I'm very upset, but I'll share the one I haven't finished working on, but this is, I think, the map that you're referring to,
Yes.
Alpha.
Yes. So just as a visual, you can see the evolution, what has happened. She has the timeline, the events. And did you put this together, Eliza, or you had someone?
I was just going to say, so Mark Smith, whom you met, this is what he does for a living. And so we talked through what we wanted to do with this, and he put the structure of it together. I'm a terrible editor, so it would have had a lot more and been crazier. So this is really his mind at work, I would say, as far as like being able to feature it on one document.
So are any of those things linked?
No, this document was made specifically, we use it in our presentations when we propose to cities.
Mhm.
And really it's just in a handout that we send out so far.
I think what you might want to do is an infograph because I think now I'm just talking about Alpha in terms of what you want to create in terms of showing that, because it may show the impact a little stronger with the numbers in terms of your 1,000 plus shows with highlighting the cities, your 9 cities. And when you said map, I kept thinking she had a map where she put the areas that she has impacted. So thank you. I like it. It does a good job, but
Well, that's good. What? Alpha, you were going to say something?
No, I was laughing at Lisa, how I got stuck on her language earlier when she was asking about documenting, and I'm like,
Underdocumented people, underdocumented.
Yeah, underdocumented people. So now I went to immigration. I went through all these shifts of when it was just the language, and I just shifted gears all over the place, and I was stuttering and couldn't answer your question because I don't know if any people that I was working with is immigrant, and I needed undocumented workers. I didn't. And then I had to catch up with myself and did not say it out loud, So yeah. So we are out in front of this, but I think that I posted in the chat, so that we could frame this. Is that we know that we've done all this work in the field, but this is all about the planning of how we're going to work as a collaboration of 3 or more partners to design and enhance the capacity of small and diverse organizations with historical records and collections. And we do have historical records, Laura, especially going back to 1986. Those are historic records in terms of the storefront or art, like engagement using well, developing communities, because that's what you did over there at the Flatiron.
Right, yeah, it documents a cultural district that was kind of wiped out. So by real estate speculation and market. So
Wow. You know,
I
one
think
thing that I'm looking at in terms of like I'm like an outsider looking at you guys' work is making sure that there's some kind of a lead title so that if I'm a graduate student, that there's key terms, keywords, you
But
know, so
but you
that
can,
I could reach your information. So if it's the developer, you know, if it's the student that's getting a degree in urban development per se. So having those key terms, and I don't know if we're at that point, if you're at that point, but having key terms, I think would be really helpful for someone who's doing research so that they can find
well,
your
and
information.
that's the rest of it, but we're almost out of time. But I think since Alpha has her stuff at the Library of Congress, it might be interesting if she could find a link to it, send us a link to it and see how they catalog it.
yeah,
And in terms of the terminology and what applies and what needs to be addition, and then build on that since it's already done.
That's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
Then you can also do keyword
Yeah.
searches too on the internet, because I used to do it for market, as to what people go look for
Right.
in
Right.
terms of doing
so.
it.
I
But
think that what Ron is, correct me if I'm wrong. What Ron is trying to say is, when we look at categories, and
Mhm,
I did make a note of cultural districts. Laura has cultural district.
mhm,
Um, I was part of a cultural district in the case study in Sacramento. Liza has formed cultural districts by the work that she's done in the Los Angeles downtown LA. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now it is a cultural district, so we can break things down into categories uh, in the case studies.
mhm.
So again, that's about the
Mm-hmm.
cataloging of what we're doing, and then putting
Mm-hmm.
it into the sections that we need to put it in.
Yeah.
And if you've got that first, I think all of you have access to that first PowerPoint. They show exactly how they do cataloging and then just
Mm-hmm.
bringing it back in terms of that consistency, in terms of what both culturally as well as what library researchers would be looking for. So you've got two audiences. You've got the public, and then I think you've got researchers, and they would probably
Mm-hmm.
use different terminology.
Yeah.
And then you were asked the question last month as who will be using these archives? What are the who And then we broke it down into those people that are going
Hmm.
to come in and look for them and what they're going to be looking for.
Yeah, that was in that question. It's in the, and I'll send you the updated PowerPoint. It's a hot mess, but I'll send it to you. But it
I
had
would like that after you update it. I would like that one slide separated out from the PowerPoint of how you it was the last slide you showed. I like the way you grafted it out and had it
status of
those,
different organizations. Yeah, it needs to be cleaned up, and you've added a whole lot more to it.
yeah, I like that, and I know I can use that with the Artworks Fund because it's very clear, and it gives us, it brings more clarity to the conversation when you can see things for me in a graph than if I have to read all this stuff.
See, I do
I'm
most
such a
graphs
visual
and
person.
bullet points because nobody's reading my reports, but they like graphs
Yeah,
and
yeah.
quotes,
So
and
that's
then.
why I was harping on the mapping and how to use those in the
But really,
appendix.
look at infographics. A lot of people use Canva. I'm not really good at that, but I know some of the infographics are just, they use the Canva, which is the free thing. I haven't quite figured it
I
out.
use Canva.
Okay, but you can do some infographics, which I think, in terms of showing the impact, the number of people you interviewed, the different types of people you interviewed, it gives it's a lot quicker to grasp because I know I've been getting reports with people pay quite a bit for to do it, but it just makes it like crystal clear.
mhm.
And then I know I have my resources are collection basis is creative conversation with all the interviews that I've done, and then the blogger since 2009 of
Hmm.
projects that are on there. So I have to do the research and do the count to add the numbers to the infographic, right?
Yeah, because they
Okay,
need
yeah,
the
yeah,
raw
yeah.
data for you to
Right.
do, but all of you've done quite a lot, and just put where your stuff is stored now. But I think if you can send us links to see how it's looking at the Library of Congress with the not the art slant, but whatever art slant went to, that went to. Do you have a link to that with
Went
your
to the New
stuff?
York consortium.
Yeah, the New York Artists Resource
Yeah.
Consortium. But I think that would be helpful just to see how if their cataloging is even consistent in terms of
Mm.
how you find stuff there. You all been doing a lot of stuff that you got to pull out of you.
We have a lot of stuff, but we have to like pull it out of us. And like I guess that's what this whole process is about, is like to
Hmm. Okay.
I'm going down this one it's a New York Art Resources Consortium, which is connected to the Brooklyn Museum, the Fricker Collection, and the Museum of Modern Art. With the Wayback Machine, I did have the link for that. And again, I don't have my internet pulled up. I just have the Zoom pulled up,
Hmm.
and I can put this in the chat so that I'll put this one paragraph in, because everyone in the art slant community will live on in these resources.
What is the Wayback Machine?
It's all the internet data dating back to 1996.
96.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a special site you go to, or is
You
it
you
a?
do you do. I shared the link the last time, and I'll share the link in. Give me a minute. Share the link.
Okay.
I was getting ready to give you this information.
Thank you.
This is, yeah. I had shared the Wayback link and all those links before.
Perfect. Let me go.
Um,
Let me go copy it now before you go sign off. Any other thoughts in terms of where we go next, or your thoughts as to what's not confusion? And thanks for all your participation. Okay, come on, copy. Thank you. And
Wayback
oh, I got it.
Machine is the
Uh-huh.
Internet Archive. It has something like 663 billion web pages.
Ooh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
You could
You
get you
know,
could you could go down the rabbit hole real quick.
okay. Well, that's what researchers do. I'm sending you this before we log out, so you have it. That
Blank document.
So are they coming back on, or are you
You
signing
can bring
out
them
of
back.
the
You can bring them back in the room.
Everyone's gone.
.org? Playback. Here you go. You get it?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good. And then the other one was Internet Archive is another one that I have. Well, Internet Archive is the Wayback Machine, so you'll find everything that you'll need on that site if you go there.
Uh-huh.
Hmm. And so, anyway, that brings us as a close to the day. You have anything what I need to do when I come back is to bring some links.
Yeah, and you could just send us some links. I'd like to look at them before in terms of what's happening there.
Right, I'll pull it back up and I'll send it to you guys.
And then I'll send you some stuff. I'll send you the thing. And then I need to send like, well, I'll send it to you. If I wanted to send it to everybody, do I just post it? It's from the BMRC, and it was the question that both Keela asked and Liza asked last time, in terms of the one I read to you about the Instagram and the Facebook, and then Keela was looking at going forward, and it's just basically you do it every month and you're consistent with what you do, is what they were basically saying. And back up, back up, back up. But I'll send you the email.
All right. You ladies
Yeah.
have a,
Well, Liza, we got as much sunshine as you, except it's probably not 70 degrees outside.
It is, what is it? Let's see, what is it?
Yeah, you're 70 probably. Yeah.
Yep, right around there.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I'm very happy right at this 68 to 72 is heaven.
Be good. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye
all
bye.
right, thank you. And then you
Bye.
can get the link and the video once it's posted up. We can stop recording it now. Okay. And then you can get that as soon as it's posted before next week.
Thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
And next week we're going to have Artists Design the Future.
Okay.
And you wanted that case study of Bronzeville?
Actually,
Laura?
you're the week after, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
all
she's
right.
the week after. So next week we don't have much to promote. I'm going to be promoting theirs starting now though. Next week, I'll think about it if there's anything specific, but not sure. I'm in promotion mode again. It's so much work. I could cry. It's just endless. How do people do that all the time? I got exhausted and stopped for a while. And so
Yeah.
back to doing
March
it.
15th, you don't know what's going to be on, but March 22nd.
Yeah, so I'm going to create a Facebook and share it. If you can share it around, post it, invite people specifically to it. Let's try to ramp it up a little bit. I think now, I mean, if you're going to be there next week, Laura, I'd love to talk to you about this opportunity that we have. I'll know more by next week. And then just how we can, bring more people in, and possibly next week, we could also play around with, Clubhouse, or maybe we could try during your event, if we don't have enough people towards the end, we could try Clubhouse with the same topic during 2 weeks from now. And there you go.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
And I'm getting organized. Everything's coming together. I'm super excited.
Yeah.
And I was actually on time. I had everything set up, and then I got interrupted right as it was turning 11. But I was only 3 minutes late.
Yeah,
I
our
went to go.
janitor came in and was assessing the bathroom for me to get a new floor.
Alpha's already calling me. Did
I'm
you
like,
have an
"Man."
issue today too? I know. I'm literally in front of the computer, but that's okay. I just
I
didn't
was
want you
running
to
late.
think
I
I was
usually
that
like
bad.
to
I also
log
knew
in,
Lisa would.
I usually like to log in before, and the janitor, came in, and he was looking at the bathroom tiles that need to be replaced. And I said I had a Zoom meeting between, like 1 o'clock, and then he was doing extra. Rick was doing extra. So Laura,
I'm
were you
gonna
on the call when Shona was talking about the placemaking project she just got funding for?
What?
No, I
Another?
I
Oh,
think
that
Laura
one.
wasn't-
Yeah, I know about that.
Yeah, Laura
Oh,
wasn't on the
tell Laura,
call.
this is exciting. Look at Alpha's little badass right here. Tell her. It's very exciting. I'll be right back.
The Caltrans grant that Rocky or Johnson told us about in the beginning, Shona submitted her application with Sojourner Truth African Heritage Museum
Mhm.
with the Florin Road Partnership City of Sacramento Arts and Culture, and the Luther Burbank. And so they were funded $1.1 million.
Really?
We got that announcement last week. And that's basically a placemaking project that she'll do until June of 2024.
Yeah.
And that's beautifying this whole strip of like business corridor that leads to the museum with placemaking opportunities, outdoor greening, banners, trees, murals, and public art, and then the community component and is the community outreach, where they go out and clean up the litter, and bring attention to clean green. That's what the whole thing is, cleaning up California roadways and stuff.
Right.
And so yeah. So it was announced last Tuesday that they were funded for what was asked, and it's not a matching.
Congratulations. That's
It's
tremendous.
not a matching grant. It's a
Yeah.
here's the money.
Right.
Right. So and what was the positive part about it? It was that we knew that the city was saying that you got to do the work, but we'll underwrite it. And it was all these series of meetings once a week that the team would circle back and talk and meet, and then we took it to the partnership and made sure they were included in on the city conversations. And they're just elated, because they were like, they didn't know where they were going to get the money from for that business corridor. So they're all on board. And this is for me as a consultant, this is one of the largest projects I've facilitated that got the funding.
Right.
And we were over here, crying every week about every time, for a whole year we were just shut out,
Right.
So this and then the Native American Foundation that I wrote the grant for, they were funded what was asked, and so but these placemaking grants I have been working on with the NEA and our town for 3 years.
Right.
And so this was the premise of, I guess, building everything and being able to submit that placemaking when I could. So I could use that to leverage our town now.
Right.
With proposing funding, since the city arts and culture is part of this packet.
Right. And so the AARP is also, their challenge grants are especially looking at intergenerational, it can help fund conversations between different populations. It can make the mobility issues, so that everybody can kind of get in that district, not just walking, but whatever else needs to happen.
AARP funds our virtual in the Bronzeville Art District. They've been funding us since like 2019.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Good work.
Yep. So talk to you next week, if not before.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Congratulations on all those artists, Liza.
Well, let's hope. We're working on it.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Bye.
Good news all around. Bye.